Sat Nam. Sat Nam. Satnam. Hi, my name is Ferri. Welcome to my channel. I'm going to continue along the themes of reflecting on the documentary The Keepers. Who killed Sister Kathy? If you haven't seen it, don't worry, I'm not giving a lot away. I'm just pulling things to reference. I am an intuitive energy healer. I'm definitely a trauma expert. And I'm a Kundalini yoga practitioner. And as you watch these videos, I'm just reflecting on this amazing documentary that has so much juice to it. So, let's get started. Satnam. My name is Ferri, and welcome to my channel. I am an intuitive energy healer, a spiritual counselor, a Kundalini yoga practitioner, and some people call me a master. I am going to discuss episode 2 of the documentary The Keeper today. The main theme is who murdered Sister Kathy Kesnick. What's interesting is in one of the first scenes, we're in Jane Doe's home. Now, when clients come to me, I'm not only paying attention to their clothing and how they walk in a room, how they sit down, their body language, their eye movement, their voice, their tone of voice, how it changes with different questions, how it changes with different breath exercises. But sometimes I'm able to go into my clients' homes, and that gives me a world of information about them as well, because everything has energy. And so that energy represents something about yourself. And sometimes we can have material things in our homes that are actually depleting our energy. So as a master, we study details. I loved this little quote that was on the wall of Jane Doe's house. If you know the way, light it for others. Light it for others. I remember years ago when I started my private practice and the universe was bringing in trauma clients, mirrors right in front of me. I was pulling out my Kundalini brain protocols and, doing what I was taught within the Eastern sciences. But as I was doing my personal meditation work, I heard a voice. And that voice was telling me to share my story. I was terrified. The thought of that was just, I didn't think that was possible. There was a part of me that had been programmed so much from my abuse, and I think from our DNAs of our cultural and society's systems, that it's bad to talk about abuse and trauma, that you should just leave it alone. But actually, I have found that we heal more and we shed more light by doing the opposite productively. So I started to share 1 or 2 sentences with clients, and then soon it was 3 or 4. And what I actually noticed is the next week, when they would come back to me, they were more open. I mean, it makes sense, right? If somebody's shedding their mask and showing you who they are, it makes you a little bit more comfortable to do the same. So in Kundalini Yoga, taught by Yogi Bhajan, he has 5 sutras for the Aquarian age. These are things that I'm going to discuss in other videos down the road, but I thought I would read them to you. Just sit, close your eyes for a moment, and just think about it. Number 1, recognize that the other person is you. Number 2, there is a way through every block. That one was tough for me, but wait till you read my book. I was handed a lot of obstacles in the beginning of my life. but there is a way through every block. And I'm here to teach you that. Number 3, when the time is on, start, and the pressure will be off. I see that so much with my clients. Unfortunately, we tend to have to hit rock bottom before we actually do what I call the real work. Number 4, understand through compassion, or you will misunderstand the times. I will do a whole segment on that. And number 5, vibrate the cosmos, and this cosmos shall clear the path. In episode 2 of The Keepers, we're introduced to Jane Doe. This is a character in the documentary who was severely abused as a young girl in the Catholic high school and endured a lot of abuse from the priests, and we learn about that. We start to learn about it anyway. One of the things that I thought was interesting when I was doing my research is there's a clip on the director of The Keepers. And I watched it, and he was saying how he was reviewing the notes of Jane Doe. And you know, sometimes you question, is this really accurate? Did this really happen? I mean, she really, she was severely abused. And so he made an appointment and came to her house and spent about 5 hours at the kitchen table talking to her. He got to see her tears and the quiver of her voice and the energy as she spoke about her stories. And when he walked out of the home, he looked at the person he was with and he said, she's telling the truth. And we have to share this story. And I understand that so well, not only from my own personal experience of coming out, having been severely abused as a child, but having so many clients come to me where no one will listen to them, where they're just pushed aside, get over it, you made it up, I don't want to hear about it. And really what that does is that actually feeds more darkness and shame in our society. It doesn't heal anything. Not for the abuser or the one abused. Jane Doe makes a powerful statement. She voiced that she believes Sister Kathy was killed because she was going to talk about the priests. That's really deep. You know, it's hard to believe that other nuns and people in that environment weren't aware that these priests were doing these horrible acts, violating the souls of these young children. And yet it's amazing what fear can do. It really can lock the throat and isolate us from actually stepping forward and doing what was right. That is why this documentary is so powerful, because it's teaching us that victims deserve to have a voice. They deserve to have recognition. And this is actually how we heal generational abuse. If you're not aware of this, when you are abused sexually or physically, like I was at age 8, I was choked on a regular basis. What happens is the frontal cortex of the brain is damaged. And that's the part of the brain that deals with memory. And so it's very common when clients come to me with certain issues in their life and they start doing this particular meditation, some specific breath work, that memories come to the surface. And you may think, well, why do you want to bring up those horrible memories? Well, the truth is if you don't bring them up and work through them, they're actually operating in your life. And I've seen it so much with myself, my life story, as well as my clients, attracting victim energy, being taken advantage of, keep seeing the mirrors of your abuser over and over again. And so in order to release that, we have to take the trauma out and reprogram the brain. So I'm going to teach you a Kundalini meditation. You can actually do it just for stress release, even if you haven't been abused. You're using your fingers because we rewire the brain with different combinations of how we use the fingers, but we're going to start with the thumb and the pointer, and you can have them on your lap, but I want you to be able to see me. So we have Sa, ta, na, ma. And then we take an inhale because it is actually really important to use your diaphragm, your belly breath, to exhale to make the sounds. And I will do videos later on proper breathing with chanting and how that stimulates the thymus and thyroid and pituitary and pineal. But for right now, you're just going to get an introduction. So I'll just do it for about a minute with you. So take a deep inhale. Satanama. 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 We'll do that at the end of the video. Okay, so what I also thought was interesting about episode 2 is that we start to learn the psychology behind abusers. It's interesting, we put priests on a pedestal saying they're God. We sometimes put parents on a pedestal thinking everything's all right. And they're just human beings. You know, and it's important as we move forward in society to start paying attention to the details of what child abuse looks like. I think as a society, we always think, well, why did it take them 20 years to come out with what happened to them? Once again, and I will talk in the next episode, there's brain damage. And that gets stored. And basically that person is living in survival and they don't even know it. And it's usually not, and it's funny, Jane Doe mentions this at some point. I can't remember if episode 2 or 3, but she mentions how it's not talk therapy usually. It's usually the quiet stillness of being alone, doing breath work and meditation work, that then the soul starts to unravel the truth. And it's beautiful and it's vulnerable and it's scary. So it's interesting because I think listening to some of the psychology and the patterns of the school system and the behavioral patterns of the priests, there's brainwashing that takes place, and it deals with somebody being in power. And for me, I know personally, I'm going to give you an example, when I came out with my abuse to my immediate family, I sat with my father and then I sat with my brothers separately. And I actually wish I had a tape recorder of those 2 conversations because they both basically said the same thing. I don't believe they were consciously aware at the time, but they were taking in information from the abuser and basically saying that I am the problem. There really wasn't any conversation. Basically, they had already decided what the truth was, which was very painful to me. There were no questions. There was no energy of sympathy. It was just like, this is the way it is. And that happens a lot to victims, and it definitely happens to this environment where these girls are being brainwashed by the priests that they are bad, that they are the problem, and they believe it. Of course they believe it. And so we begin to hide. You know, you start to hear about that with Jane Doe, and you're hiding. And so that is what's so powerful about sharing your story. This documentary is sort of teaching us how to become compassionate to victims. Victims. And to start studying what makes somebody abuse. And why are we not speaking up? Why are we not taking risks and facing the darkness? And so I feel like in the future this documentary is going to help families not slip it under the table so much, but even if you're uncomfortable, you've got to put it back on the table, you know, because in order to do things right, that's how we help stop the legacy of darkness and how we shed more light and more healing into our society. Healing with the abusers as well, but that's going to be another episode. So before I finish, let's review Satanama one more time, pressing with the pointer first. Take a deep inhale. Satanama, 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 Satanama. That's it for today. Please subscribe, tune in to my channel right below at Satnam TV, and share any comments you may have or any questions or things you would like to explore as I explore more of the Keeper. Blessings.